Subscribers to NewOrleans.Football get early access to all of our podcasts. They get access to our news, our analysis, the members-only podcast, the overtime segment, and so much more. Make sure you're locked in for the upcoming season. You can save 20% on your first payment right now by using the code NOF and visiting NewOrleans.Football/subscribe. Make sure you get locked in today, buy it for the year, and you will get all of our coverage all year long, all the way through next year's draft and so much more. So we got a great show for you guys today. Welcome back to another episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. We're going to talk about Klint Kubiak and what he has brought to the system and our early impressions of that, a projection on where the Saints might draft next year and what could they get if that comes true, and so much more in this episode. We are coming to you from our studio on Veterans Memorial Boulevard, right next to my guy, Matt Bowers. If you need a new car, make sure you check out one of his mini dealerships. They'll get you the best prices at the best car buying experience. All right, we're going to hit this quick break, and we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. This Father's Day, show your dad you appreciate his unique style with the Breitling watch from Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Make sure you're ready for the day. Father's Day is June 16th. And if not, maybe you just want to treat yourself. Smash that presentation, nail that deal, achieve that goal. Get yourself a Breitling watch from Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, 7713 Maple Street, between Adams and Burdett, Uptown. 504-866-5433. Or visit them at friendandcompany.com. Hard Hide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. All right, let's get into the show. I'm Nick Underhill here with Mike Triplett and Brandon Thomas. Joe's back there somewhere, getting ready for his big night tonight. We're excited to hear what Joe's got going on out in the world. Anyways, it's time for the lead topic presented by Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers is the official jewelers of the New Orleans Saints. Make sure you check them out for Father's Day. Go there, get your dad a Breitling watch, get yourself one, and while you're there, check out their Florida Lead necklace and earrings that you now see on the screen. The earrings are priced at $1,100, and the necklace is $1,350.
Lead topic. What do we like most about Klint Kubiak's effects so far? With each passing week, we learn more and more details about how the offense is changing under Klint Kubiak and the new offensive system. On Tuesday, Taysom Hill told Mike about, how Klint flew all the way to Utah to try to get to know him and induct him into the process. And then Nick, you had talked to Jake Hayner, and he was saying how basically everything else up to this point was kind of like a patchwork of everything of Drew Brees' system, and now it's changing, and it's all collectively just the offensive system. And then Derek Carr told Chris Long on his podcast that he likes how Kubiak is very demanding. So what do we like most about Kubiak so far?
I like everything about it so far. I mean, it just looks and feels a lot better. And it's the accountability factor, I think, is number one for me. And it's just been such an obvious thing. You hear it, you see it, people talk about it, and I think that's important. I think that's what Dennis Allen's really had on his side of the ball for a long time. And you see a lot of leadership on that side of the ball and the development of leaders and people coming in and buying in, and it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling system where it just continually replenishes because you have culture established over there. And I don't know that the offense really had that on that side of the ball last year. And I think it was really evident that they didn't. I don't even think it's a mystery. I don't think they had that same stuff. You had the receivers gesturing at the quarterback on the field, the quarterback calling out the receivers, people kind of showing up, offensive linemen being upset with it. It was just kind of not really a tight, cohesive unit, I think, until really later in the season. And I think if you can bring in someone that just kind of has that immediate buy-in top to bottom and everybody kind of falls in line, I think that's how you get the best out of, even if it's a mediocre group, you get more out of them than if you don't have that element. So I think that's been the most evident thing, and I think it's really a substantial addition.
Yeah, how many times have we heard the phrase attention to detail in interviews in the last 4 weeks combined? Almost like it's a talking point, and they're just saying it over and over again. But we hear it in so many different ways. That's what Derek Carr said on that podcast, was his example that he gave in the clip that I think DJ sent out on the NOF account was that even when he thought he made a really good throw the other day, like Klint Kubiak was like, all right, but you did this a little, like, and he's just like, he's harping on every detail. I know I talked to Rick Dennison the first week, and he said, I mean, first of all, this offense is designed to make a lot of things look like we're going to show you this, we're going to show you this, we're going to show you this, but it's going to be different every time. But he said it's a persistence, and that's what we're going to teach him. He said we're going to try to be persistent with what we're trying to do and get better at it. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, you get pretty good at it. They're teaching a pretty basic concept that really works, and they want to be experts at it. And when you talked to Jake Haener, I thought it's not really even a fault of the old coaching staff. It's just almost like here at NOF, if somebody, if we're on year 20 and somebody comes in here and they're like, okay, how do we start the podcast? It'd be like, we have our system, like you'll learn it or whatever. These new guys are coming in and they're teaching A, B, C, and they're like, and they know their stuff, and the guys are learning it from scratch, and they're learning to like perfect it. And I just, it just seems like what this offense needed so badly.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think is huge that they got that. And it has to be intimidating going in there, and it's 20 years of just building on top of something. And one of the things that I thought Haener said that was really interesting is that like on some plays, it calls for a 3-step drop, but like Drew will take a 5 on that, and it's kind of like, well, Drew took a 5 here. Am I supposed to take a 5 or a 3? And they're like, we'll just do what feels right. And it's just like, well, just because Drew Brees made it work, and Drew might chop his feet a little bit differently, and he might speed it up on one over another to kind of, I don't know, just change things up. Like, yeah, it works for Drew, and it's kind of freelanced a little bit, but I'm new. Like, I'm not this Hall of Fame guy. And Haener, it was just really interesting hearing him break it down, because like we've long suspected that playbook just kind of became just like this like massive, hard to decipher thing, because the 3 people, Pete, Drew, Sean, like they were just in it forever, and they just kept building on it and adding to it. And the shorthand, like you said, you come in, you do it a certain way. There's like a shorthand in here between us, and somebody else comes in, they might not understand it, and it's a little bit hard. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, I think it's a good thing to kind of back that up. It's like when Joe, I go to the old folks home to volunteer. He's been doing it for 7 years, helping people out, and I go in behind him. Joe, the intern's got it down. I don't know what to do. He's a great guy, always in the community doing stuff for people. A saint for sure. But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, it's definitely hard to follow behind somebody that's been doing something for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. Like I always kind of related to like the military kind of approach. Like you have your general, but then you have your lieutenants, and I feel like now it's interesting because we passed the World War II museum earlier. Like you have Kubiak could be your general in like the Pacific Theater, and DA could be the general. He's the overall general, but he could lead you through Europe and stuff like that. So having that mix of just discipline across the board and kind of getting rid of some of that muscle memory that you had previously, which people are not really like, it really stood out because it's actually going to get into our next topic. Yesterday they had Drew Brees inducted into the Hall of Fame, and you see the people that were in the room that were current players right now. It's not too many people. So getting rid of kind of some of that language and some of that old processes and stuff, it's pretty important. So moving on to the next topic. Yes.
Roll that back real quick. Yeah, I kind of, it was kind of straight. Like, I don't know, when Drew was up there talking, like the juxtaposition, like there is now kind of like a clear separation from the olden times to the current times. Yeah. And like I felt it there. Like I kind of noticed it, and it was just, I don't know, it felt so far away, like in the present. And then it's like, wait, this is a whole different coach, a whole different staff. Like everything touching Drew, like is almost gone now. Like, that was kind of something that, sorry, it's just kind of,
no, you're good.
Hey, like really,
that's what
really
Eric McCoy was in the room. And yeah, how many players on the current offense played with Drew Brees?
It's not many. It's Alvin, really McCoy, Taysom.
He was there too.
Yeah.
Cam popped in, but he's on defense, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot. It's not a lot.
Yeah, no, the distance.
Olave and Drew never played together.
No.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really,
mm-hmm.
yeah, it was really interesting just to see, like, dang, like there's a clear divide of the old versus the new.
Yeah.
And they're going to turn it around and make it happen.
I will say this, though. It all sounds great. We like everything we've been hearing. I mean, even the comments. We've been reading your comments this week. The comments after I wrote that story about Taysom, the comments after Nick wrote that story about Jake Haener, it's like, I feel like 60% of all the comments is like, yes, finally, some common sense. Like this stuff just sounds obvious and simple. It doesn't sound like they're doing anything drastically different, but it all sounds good. We're going to have to see. Everybody's learning something new. As I said, Taysom Hill said, like what's different about the terminology? I couldn't think of anything that's not different. like there will be an adjustment period that we will be talking to them in October about. Well, actually, that first month of the season took a little getting used to, but now we're like, it always sounds good at first, but we do have to be prepared to see an adjustment period, and that is something that has been part of Derek Carr's track record. Is his first year in every new offense he's played in, it has taken him a little while. So.
Definitely. Well, moving on to the next topic, Drew Brees was elected into the Saints' Hall of Fame on Thursday. You can check out that full video on NewOrleans.Football. But we got a chance to talk to him as he kind of like reflected on his career. And one thing I think you asked the question, Nick, was about, do you think you could have played more? And he said he could have played up to 3 more years if his arm didn't give out. But, the shoulder was a lingering issue. But how many years could he have played if you think things would have worked out with the arm?
I mean, it feels like Drew could have played forever just off his mental ability, just his ability to do things the right way. Like, he didn't really need to be able to throw the ball down the field anymore. Like, if you take out any arm issues, like, he probably could have played forever. Like, it's just the body giving out at a certain point. But even with some of the arm issues, like, I think he could have kept playing at what he was at in early 20 before all the injuries piled up on him. Like, obviously he couldn't throw the ball down the field anymore, but like, it didn't really matter. Like, they could have kept winning games. They were highly effective with him. And if he just maintains some type of ability, I think that he could have easily probably played another 3 years.
Yeah, I've said this a million times. I used to say it when I was kind of like, I felt like I was defending Drew against like what started to be growing hate that like hated. Like, people kind of wanted something new and different toward the end because they talked about his arm strength. They talked about his air yards. Like, it was like so, and I always, like, I remember we used to joke that Drew Brees is the kind of guy who, like, if you tied his right arm around his back, he could do it with his left arm. And he said that's actually what he's doing now with his kids. He's throwing to them left-handed, and then he boasted yesterday, like, that he could, throw a mean spiral 30 yards down the field or whatever. But what I thought was one of the more impressive things about Brees' career is in those last few years when he was 38, 39, 40, 41, he had the 2 highest completion percentages of his career in 18 and 19 and the 2 highest passer ratings of his career in 18 and 19. He started like literally completing 75% of his passes. It's like, I can't throw it deep anymore. So how am I going to, and the 2 lowest, the 3 highest completion percentage, the 3 highest passer ratings, and the 3 lowest interception rates. He's like, I have to play differently, so I have to be really good at accuracy and being smart with the ball. And they were still, among the league leaders in first downs. They were still among the league leaders in efficiency. And it's like he just knew how to play that position, and he knew what he had, and he knew. And so, yeah, absolutely, a 43 or a 44-year-old Drew Brees, I still think would have been an effective one, even if he was getting the natural wear and tear and not just an arm that he couldn't use at all anymore. How would that have changed the Saints? I don't think it would have changed the Saints drastically, their approach, because they really haven't used a high draft pick on his heir apparent that they wouldn't have otherwise used. They went to Jameis Winston instead. They brought in Andy Dalton. They tried Taysom Hill for a little while. Like, they tried to go in-house, and they never really rebuilt. They never really stopped trying to compete. Even if Sean Payton had moved on, they would have still hired Dennis Allen. I think they would have been better because of him, but I don't think it would have changed anything they did from a team-building approach.
The most fascinating thing about Drew's career is that him and Sean, after the 16th season, like there was a high level of, I don't think a lot of people would have been able to make the admission about themselves and their offense at that point that those two made, because Drew threw for 5,208 yards. He averaged 325 yards a game. He completed 70% of his passes. He had 37 touchdowns. He had 15 interceptions. It was a great season, 6th in Offensive Player of the Year voting. But I dissected the hell out of that offense. Like, if you can go through, like, and I did the thing where I charted every throw, and you can go through and look at specific throws at specific depths. And Drew could just not hit certain throws at a certain depth anymore. Year before he could, 2 years before he was automatic on them. That season, he couldn't. And they saw the writing on the wall and where it was coming, and they just changed the offense. They condensed it. It became squeezed into that middle quadrant as opposed to playing, out on the edges. He would still hit some throws out there. And I remember there was a playoff game, like it was against Carolina, I believe, where they kind of stacked the middle of the field and tried to dare him to throw outside. And like, he was still able to do it, and they won the game. But that's where the league kind of thought he was at that time. And the Saints saw it too. And just to make that admission, to have like the lack of ego to say like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to stretch it down the field anymore. We're going to just be a pop gun offense, and we're just going to just pop the hell out of people. Wop, 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 wop. Like just over and over. Like that's what they did. And it worked. And they became the most efficient offense in the league. It helps when you have Mike Thomas. Like he was a perfect player for that system. I do think people forget how good Mike was down the field in 2016 when they had the vertical element in the offense. I think his role was kind of defined by the quarterback more so than by his own talents. But it all came together and it was perfect. But it is staggering to me that somebody of his caliber would have the self-awareness to say like, yep, we're going to do this. And I'm going to be the best at it. And I'm going to humble myself and I don't give a damn. And we're going to win these games and we're going to change it and all that. When at that point in his career, he led the league in passing 3 years in a row. And they were bad. Like
5 out of 6.
They were bad at that point. Like he very easily could have said like, nope, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to do it. I don't care. You guys failed me on the defensive side of the ball. But like he just didn't. And I don't know a lot of guys that would be able to do that at that point in their career.
Kind of a follow-up, like if his body, for lack of a better term, if his body didn't quit on him and he was able to go out on his own terms, do you think there would have been a clear, more defined rebuild of him and Sean Payton going out at the same time or something like that?
Well, let's get into that, though. Like, first of all, yeah, I mean, like, if Drew plays 3 more years, does Sean leave? I don't know. I don't think he does.
Maybe he still does. I mean, that was like a sort of a burnout issue.
You don't get burned out when you're winning.
But do they keep winning? I mean,
yeah.
What was Drew's last year?
He went 9-3 as a starter.
He went 9-3, and the team went.
They made the playoffs.
They won the division. They won the division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I think as long as they kept winning divisions, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know if Sean would have lasted as long as Drew. I almost would thought Drew lasted longer. But yeah, I don't like the narrative that. I'm not trying to defend Sean Payton here, but I don't like the narrative that like Sean was like, oh, I don't have Drew anymore, so it's going to be too hard, so I quit. Like, I think it was, 18 years of burnout or whatever it was, as much as anything else. So I think it's possible he still walks away if Drew is here, but he doesn't walk away if they still keep going 13-3 every year. That's for sure.
No, I think there's an element. I think if they're winning it, if he drafted Mahomes, he doesn't quit then.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, yeah. So there's options. I think burnout in invigoration is directly tied to results. I don't know, man. I think there's an element that Sean saw, like, this is going to be tough, and I'm trying to get into the Hall of Fame, and I'm not going to do this, and I need to get out of here and reset. I think that was
definitely.
I think his private thoughts had some of that to it. I mean, it'd be impossible not to. I don't think anybody walks away from Andy Reid. If he doesn't get Mahomes, Andy Reid might get burnt out at some point, but he's not getting burnt out until Mahomes' career is over. So I don't know. I think if Drew's here,
I guess that was my point. I don't think it was Drew or nothing else for Sean. But he needed a Mahomes.
He needed a quarterback. He needed someone that felt like, all right, like this is worth it. Like I can do it. Yeah.
He kept it pretty close to the vest when you asked him, but he said there was a possibility that he was trying to come back.
He let it out on the follow up and said he would have ran the veer if he had to come back and play, but like he just didn't feel like he physically had it. Yeah, and that was the thing in 21. I remember getting the text on.
That was Ian Book week. Was that the specific week because they had the COVID? They had Jameis had gotten hurt earlier in the year. And then
that was that Monday Night Dolphins game.
Was that the week they reached out to him?
I don't know. It was around. I can't remember the date of the game, and I don't know if it was that week or whatever. But I remember there was the movie on Netflix, the one with like the it was about the damn climate control or whatever. Christmas Day. It was a Christmas Day. Yeah, it was Christmas Day. I got a text about it, and I was like, trying to chase it down. I remember the story. I don't know if the game was before or after that though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're gonna hit a quick break. When we come back, we'll discuss ESPN's first Football Power Index rankings, and we'll hit the Martin's questions of the day. There's so much more. Keep it locked to NewOrleans.Football.
Don't look up. Total Maintenance is one of the largest locally owned home and commercial service providers in South Louisiana. They were founded in 1980 and serve the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge markets. And Total Maintenance wants to show some love to our NOF listeners. They have a membership program that gets you 2 tune-up visits for AC and heating, as well as club membership discounts of 15% on all repairs, Half off of all diagnostic charges and 3-year warranties on most repairs for membership clients. This is usually priced at the low price of $24.95 a month per system, but if you tell Total Maintenance that you found them through NOF, they'll lower the price to $20.95 per month per system for as long as you keep the membership active. It will never increase. Total Maintenance has a tune-up special running this summer for $79, down from the normal price of $179. This is a one-time offer for one system only. They also offer a free diagnostic on second opinions on units deemed to be unrepairable, and they offer free estimates for replacements as well as commercial maintenance programs. Services include AC and heating service and replacement, electrical service, plumbing service, as well as generator service and installation. They are Total Maintenance. Find them at tm-ac.com or give them a call at 504-841-3300, or if you're in the Baton Rouge area, 225-480-1000.
Are you tired of renting and ready to own your dream home? Contact Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, your trusted source for home loans. Our competitive rates and flexible terms can help make your home ownership dreams a reality. If you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, our experienced lenders are here to help. Our online application process allows you to apply on your schedule. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit us online at jeffersonfinancial.org to learn more. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience.
Welcome back to the studio on Veterans Memorial Boulevard. It is now time for our next segment presented by Hard High Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. ESPN released its first Football Power Index. The rankings are, this is a rating projecting the models for the year on like where they think teams will draft at. And the Saints, they have them winding up at the 10th pick of the 2025 draft, even with the strength of schedule factored in. So are the Saints getting shortchanged in this? Let's take a look at the graphic.
Yeah.
They got the Patriots picking 1, Carolina 2, Denver 3, Tennessee 4. These are teams that are kind of still figuring out. But if we go to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got the order there. You got the Giants, Vikings, Raiders, Cardinals, and then the Saints rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, look, so there's FPI projection. There's two things going on here. One, they put a projection on each team. They give them a grade or whatever. They have the Saints as the 7th worst team in the NFL in that rating, and then they say they play out all the games to give every team a record, and that bumped the Saints to the 10th pick because they have an easy strength of schedule. And yeah, of course that surprises me. Like, we've talked about this a million times. We think the Saints are the same as they've been. You know, with more luck, they can be better. With, horrible injury luck, they could obviously be worse. But still an 8 to 9 win type of team, like the same Saints we've been covering for years. And we talked about like Mike Clay's projections for ESPN. He does a thing there too. He did each team as well as the player projections last week. He had the Saints at 8.8 wins. It was his projection, which that all makes sense to me. So I don't know exactly where this one comes from. They said their model is primarily on win totals from ESPN Bet in conjunction with schedule, along with factors such as the strength difference between a team's starting and backup quarterback and a revamped special teams rating. I don't know what they typed into a computer. I could see people's gut instinct saying, oh, the Saints are getting older. I don't know how a computer says they're the 7th worst team in the league. We've not seen them fall to that level in years. I don't know what it is. I consider the Saints to be pretty even with the Falcons and the Buccaneers. I don't know why the Buccaneers are 4 spots higher and the Falcons are 10 spots higher. They obviously have the Falcons winning the division, but I just don't get it. I mean, we could look at the teams that they have better. They're lofty on the Bears. They're lofty on the Jets.
They got the Bears out of them?
Yeah.
Way ahead.
Unproven.
The Jaguars, the Steelers. I mean,
none
of these teams bother me. This page doesn't bother me that much.
Stat.
Bears. I don't think the Chargers are better. I don't think the Jets are better.
Chargers at 18 is wild.
Yeah.
Like didn't they just get rid of all their players?
They did.
I mean, I get it. Like I think there are probably
Jets
15 teams I'd rank ahead of the Saints, but if you 26 teams.
If you tell me Rodgers is legit, okay, fine. I can see that.
Yeah, we're getting into some good
the Falcons
teams
is nuts. The Falcons is nuts.
Well, they had to pick. This is draft order, so they had to pick someone to win the division.
All right. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So it's
Bills,
Dallas,
Ravens,
Jets,
Lions,
Chargers,
Chiefs,
and Bears
49ers.
are our biggest complaints. Dallas for sure. Yeah.
I mean, 10th is, I don't know. I don't see it. Like, if you told me to pick their draft spot, I'd say 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Like, I think I put them right there again. Same as last year, probably around the same range.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my true private individual thoughts are that this is a better team than the one they had last year. I really do believe that. Like, I don't see how it could be worse. They got a better offensive system. Pretty much everybody's back. How does it go down? I don't really see it that way. Ryan Ramczyk was playing last year, but now he's hurt. Like, I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it being significantly worse than last year. I really believe in the offensive system. I really do.
Let me ask you about some other NFC teams here. That I'm fine with putting the exact same grade on these teams, but what does your gut jump out? Saints, Vikings, Buccaneers, Seahawks.
I mean, I like the
They in the
Saints
same
out of that.
group?
I like
Yeah.
the Saints out of that group, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sure, put them all in that tier. That's
Vikings
fair.
are trying out J.J. McCarthy at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Seahawks, Geno Smith had the one good year. They didn't prove they could do it without him last year. You can put the Cardinals in that same tier. They're below, I think, but Kyler Murray's finally
I'd probably
healthy
drop the
again.
Vikings out of that tier,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you're telling me to pick a JJ team versus a
different kind of JJ because
Kyler team, I'm taking Kyler's team.
Because Jefferson is still on that team, but he needs somebody to throw the ball to him.
Yeah.
So I don't see how they're not in the same tier with like Washington right now.
Yeah. Fair.
I understand human instinct looking at the Saints and being like, that team's older, their arrow's pointing down. But I don't think under the magnifying glass that's the case. Like, I do think my biggest concern with the Saints is their margin for error. I think there's so many injuries that could just unravel the team because I don't like their depth at a lot of positions.
Sure.
But yeah, on the surface, I agree with you that it feels like this team should be better than last year's team.
Look, if they're picking 10th though, like next April, like I'm excited to cover that draft. Like, you're looking at like Quinn Ewers at that point, maybe like someone like that. Like possibly.
If they get in the top 10, it's a quarterback draft. Do you think?
I think it's definitely absolutely possible. And I mean, again, I think you probably got to move up. But I mean, there's some QBs here. I mean, you got Sanders, Carson Beck. Not a quarterback, but Travis Hunter is going to be a top 10 pick.
If you get Sanders, you get in a package deal.
Yeah.
And the mock drafts are hilarious with quarterbacks every
the
year.
Penn State quarterback. I mean, there's some QBs potentially in this draft. Like now, there's always a list this early, and then the list.
Well, what I was going to say is mock
later.
drafts are hilarious with quarterbacks because they're too afraid to anoint them this early. So you'll see one going 5th, one going 11th, one going 18th.
Facts.
And then you get to the January mock drafts, and then they start to be like, all right, we better start with this. And then you get to the March mock drafts, and they're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
Like, it just takes a while for them to move up. So there will probably be another 3 quarterbacks going in the top 10 next year. But I guess what I'm saying is if this plays out this way, that means Derek Carr did not have a great year. That means something went wrong for the Saints. You think if the Saints end up having a top 10 pick next year, we're looking at it's quarterback time?
Yeah,
Is there a really strong
I think so.
chance?
I mean,
Yeah.
man, you're picking top 10. You have to. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If Derek has a great season and they're picking top 10 because everything else failed, like you're still looking at quarterback because it's a quarterback and you're in a range to potentially get one. You have to. You have to. I mean, look at what just happened in Atlanta. Like, if you feel it, you have to do it. There are no rules to that. And I kind of thought it was like, it's times like, man, that was dumb. Like, I would have just passed on him. But circumstances fell that way. Like, there are no rules to it. Like, there are no sacred cows. Like, there's nobody's should feel insulted. Like, it is just such a hard position to draft. If you like one, you take him. It doesn't matter if you just signed one 90 days ago. Like, you do it.
And look what Minnesota just did this year, which was really interesting. They got out ahead of it. They had a down year last year, and they're like, let's not try to hang on with Kirk Cousins any longer. We are drafting one this year. Like that was their offseason plan. They didn't hide it from anyone, and they drafted J.J. McCarthy. We'll see if he works, but they were just like, we'd rather reset with a rookie this year because we don't want to be stuck in the middle. So that's an interesting approach.
Way too early. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But what quarterback would you take if you had to take one?
the best available one.
Yeah, I don't know yet.
Sure.
I don't know him well enough to. LSU's got an offensive tackle that people like in the top 10. Maybe they could bookend their offensive tackles next year. But all right, let's say the season plays out like we're predicting, 8-9 wins.
Yeah.
They have the 15th or 16th pick in the draft. What's your gut on the position that this team's going to need most next year? Defensive end, offensive tackle, same as it always is. Corner, if the divorce finally happens with Marshawn.
No, I think because you just keep Paulson probably then, or you have the other two. I think you're okay there. It's too early. Like safety is going to be a need next year probably, but I think it's too early for that unless they sign one still, and I think that's still possibly something they could do. I think it's right now. If you're asking me non-quarterback, I would probably go defensive end, wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm thinking defensive end, offensive tackle.
Sticking with you, Mike. Defensive end, offensive tackle, just reversing the order. Well, now it's time for our Martin Wine and Spirits question of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's, so much more than just wine. Our first question comes from Micah. They ask, besides Fuaga and Rattler, how is the Saints' 2024 draft class looking?
Well, it's a good question, Micah, but the rest of the question was I haven't heard much about the other guys. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. Kool-Aid McKinstry is recovering from foot surgery. Mm-hmm. He was not expected to participate. Maybe he's not signed either, but they can still get him on the field for some things. But maybe we'll see a glimpse of him in June minicamp. I don't think we'll see him till training camp. And Jalen Ford, the 5th-round linebacker from Texas, has also been dealing with a minor injury. I think he's a little closer. We might see him at June minicamp. Might also have to wait till July. I
saw him out there with a trainer.
Yeah,
running around.
Yeah,
in the back.
I was told told minicamp maybe, but I mean it might be a stretch.
So that's why you haven't heard about those guys, which just leaves
sports hernia for Ford.
Mm-hmm. Just leaves 3 more guys. Bub Means, the receiver, 5th round. We have had a few takes on him. We'll talk about him in a sec. Christian Boyd, 6th round defensive tackle. He is out there mostly working with the 3rd string, and Josiah Ezram, the offensive tackle from Eastern Kentucky, 7th round, also out there mostly working with the 3rd string. They're both working with the 3rd string, and it's non-padded, non-contact practices. So it's hard to have a lot to say about the defensive tackle and the offensive tackle. So really, Bub Means is the only person we can really get into to answer this question, I think.
Yeah.
Bub, to me, is very clearly wide receiver 5. I think there's upside to be 4 at some point. I don't necessarily know. It's early, but I wouldn't bet on him passing up Cedric Wilson
or A.T. Perry.
Yeah, this early. So I think he's very clearly wide receiver 5 at this point. Mm-hmm. Moves well, gets down the field, has good hands. He's been 3rd team on a lot of targets. Like they rotate through. He's been getting targets on the 3rd team. 3rd team passing hasn't been incredibly accurate. So I mean, it's kind of hard to judge some of those throws. But I think he looks good, moves well, and we've seen him 3 times, and he stood out to me at different points in each of the 3 practices. So he looks solid. Like for a 5th round pick, I think he looks pretty solid.
How physical? I mean, tough to say, obviously, but do you think he can bring physicality to that position? Or
I don't know yet. They aren't doing it. You aren't fighting through anything right now.
But one thing I can say about Bub, he's always like every time you look for Coach Keith Williams, he's right there in his pocket. Yeah. Just like either Coach Keith is in his ear telling him like, hey, you need to do this, this, and this, that, and that. Even if he, messes up, he'll be like, you can see like hey man, we got to get better in his face and everything like that. So that relationship is really growing because, they both came in here at the same time. So he's really taking them under his wing and is building them up, along with the other receivers too. But that's just a connection that stands out because, like, everything Bub does, Coach Williams is right there with him. Our next question comes from Antonio. Antonio asks, after a couple of OTAs, is there any position that is screaming for veteran help?
Screaming? No. I think the one spot where I think it's still possible is, I think, safety. If that market drops enough, that's the spot where you just look at it. Just looking at the guys, just feels like
the best available.
It feels like there's room for one more on the team for sure. I think that's the one spot that I would definitely start.
Yeah, room for one more on the team, and I think if you just are looking at free agents that haven't been signed around the NFL yet, that's also where you can get the best players. I think offensive line is interesting to me because we are seeing. Anthony Herron, who they just signed, Shane Lemieux, who they just signed, and Lucas Patrick, who they just signed. 3 veterans with starting experience in past places, all getting 2nd-team reps. And I think Lucas Patrick has even gotten a few 1st-team reps, and Patrick has played both guard and center for them now. So I think those are the veterans that they signed to fill that depth, and those guys are all getting a look. I think the only way they dip back into the offensive line market is if they don't like what they see from those guys. But they added 3 veterans within the last month, and those 3 guys all moved into the 2 deep, which I thought was really interesting. So safety would have been my answer as well.
Yep. Well, for our live viewers, we appreciate y'all for sticking with us and watching this show and supporting NewOrleans.Football, because without you, none of this happens. And for those who aren't subscribed yet, what are you doing? You're missing out on premium coverage, because next week we have another OTA, this time on a Wednesday. So overtime is next. We'll catch you next time.